I got the hub off of there and the spindle all cleaned up and the hub all cleaned up and the bearings and all the parts for it all cleaned up. I still have to grease everything up to put it back together. There's one more thing that I need to do before I put it back together. Now, all these vehicles nowadays, I don't know when they started it, but they got this system called anti-lock brakes or anti-skid brakes. I don't know what different names for it, I suppose in different manufacturers and stuff. But what it's set up to do is to keep the wheels from skidding, the tires from skidding when you apply the brakes. Now, brakes, to be most effective, are applied or just to the point before the wheel starts skidding, the tire starts skidding. Once the tires start skidding, then you lose brake effectiveness, and sometimes you can actually increase speed. Well, it doesn't make any difference whether it's on a car or an airplane or a train. They started doing these, I believe, on airplanes, on jet airplanes, especially big heavy airplanes and stuff. They couldn't really feel how much braking they were applying, and they started blowing a lot of tires and stuff on landing because they were skidding, and even the tires would even catch on fire. So they developed an anti-lock, anti-skid systems for them, and then they started putting them on cars and stuff here a few years ago. Now, I've been driving for over 55 years. I have skidded, but I've developed the ability to feel when I put the brakes on and how much to apply maximum braking. It depends on the conditions, it depends on the tires, road conditions, how wet they are, ice, stuff like that, gravel. All of those depend on those conditions as to how much brake you can apply before the vehicle starts skidding. Well, these things sense and it's programmed in, and they start releasing the brakes when they think it's just before it starts skidding. But to me, it's not anywhere close to where as much braking effectiveness as what I can get on my own. It feels to me like they're spongy. The brake starts hopping, and anyway, it seems like it defeats the purpose. It doesn't really allow you to apply full braking. Anyway, I don't really like it, but it's there, so it's something we have to deal with. Well, when these unit hub bearing hubs went out on this pickup, on the one on the left side is the one that went out. When it went out, then the anti-lock brake light came on. I had the guy replace these hubs, the bearings with these new hubs, and afterwards the lights still come on. Well, I assumed maybe that this sensor went bad on it. Apparently they go bad fairly regularly. Talked to the mechanic, and he said it's not uncommon for them to go bad when you have a bearing failure like that. It gets hot or something. Anyway, the sensor goes bad. So this wire here is the sensor wire. It comes down and goes into this block, and then there is a piece on the hubs, and this segmented circle around here. That thing must pick up the magnetic flux change as it goes around each one of these segments. So I thought maybe that wasn't put on there or something, but that's obviously on there. Oh, there's the sensor there, and that must pick up that and send it to the computer. So anyway, a while back I figured that was bad, and I ordered a new sensor wire. This is the wire, goes along here and then parallels the brake line and stuff there, and then hooks into the wiring harness on the fender well there on the frame. Well, I bought that, and I was going to change it when I had the tires off one time, and then I got to looking, and it was really tough to do without pulling that fender liner. So I decided to do that now. Well, of course, I looked around for a day and I couldn't find that sensor cable. So I went in and ordered a new one. Actually, I ordered two of them. I figured I might as well change the one on this side and the one on the right side too, since I'm doing them both. Well, yesterday I was looking at the airplane, checking the engine on it. I've got a heater in there in the engine compartment, and I've got desiccant crystals in there in the spark plug holes. And I got to looking, in the desiccant in the spark plugs is starting to turn pink. So I've got some more of those plugs that fit in the spark plug holes with desiccant in it. So I started looking for those. Well, sure enough, I couldn't find those, but while I was looking for those, I found the new wire for the sensor. So that's what I'm going to do now, is go ahead and change that wire here, this sensor probe, whatever you want to call it. Then once I get that changed, then I'll go ahead and put that hub back together, grease this front end, and maybe I'll put it together. I don't know, it's going to be a while before I get those tie rods So maybe I'll go ahead and put it together and get it going before I do that. So I've got to get to the other side and work on it too. I got that sensor end out of there, and that was easy enough to do. There's just a hex head cap screw in there that holds that in, and then you kind of got to jiggle it out of there. This is an aftermarket wheel piece here. Of course, this is part of the Yukon hub setup. On the regular hub, it goes down into casting there instead, but it's pretty much the same thing. Instead of having this block to go down into, it just goes down into the casting. The dust shield here has a little tab that folds down over the top of that to protect the top of that sensor. And then to get that out of there, it's got a slot here on this side of the dust shield and a pretty large cutout right here for this sensor to come out of. And then of course we've got grommets on here, or gussets on here, and there's a whole bunch of them on there that fit into these clips on the wheel, on the brake line itself. And then there's one here on the side of this casting, and then there's another clip that goes in to a hole up here on a bracket that all of this stuff hooks up on, and that one just has kind of a zip tie around it. I had to break that off there. I've got to get that old one out of there to put the new one in, and then it goes up and hooks into this connector, and this connector has a pin on it here that goes through a hole on the back of the wheel well liner. So now I've got the wheel liner out of there and this connector come off, I've got all kinds of room to get that out of there. But if I'd have left the wheel liner on there, I could have gone ahead and got this off. You could still reach into all this stuff. I didn't know that connector was right there on that, but just by taking that connector out of the wheel liner, then that'll pop down and give you enough room to work on it. But now I've got plenty of room to get on it to get out here. Okay, so that cable goes back up underneath behind this arm and then up onto a bracket right here where several of the different brake lines go up through there. There's 3 different brake lines go through there, and then it has a pin right here that goes through the back side of the wheel liner and holds that on there, and this is the connector right here then that it connects into. Now there's one of these goofy safety lock pins in here that you've got to get out to unlock that clip. Geez, there it came. Boy, that was in there tough. And that's out of there. Okay, now here's the old one. And it's no wonder that it didn't work. You can see how this end got all chewed up there. Anyway, I'll get the new one out and put that in there, and that should fix my ABS light problem. Alright, here's the new probe. It's got all the same grommets and stuff on it as the old one. There's a little grommet that goes in that bracket up there, and then here's the terminal end that hooks into the plug up there. And this is the sensor end. Now it doesn't look a whole lot different. Actually, this thing sticks up higher, this sensor end, than the original equipment one, and the probe doesn't look a whole lot different. This one goes down almost as far, but of course this one's obviously chewed up. Got a little bit of an O-ring on it here right at the top. I put a little bit of DC4 silicone grease on there just to help keep that from freezing up in there. Well, I didn't put it all the way down on the bottom so that it wouldn't pick up junk. It wouldn't pick up dirt. Well, there it is. Put the screw back in. So that goes underneath that dust shield, and the dust shield goes down back over the top of it, and then the wire cable goes back up here, and there's one grommet that fits in that metal bracket right there, and then we got these grommets here that fit on the brake line all the way around, and then this goes up through there and plugs back in. But I've got to pull that one grommet out of there, that one mount for the grommet out of that bracket up there on the truck frame before I can put the new one in there. Gotta get some better sockets. Ratchets weren't very good when they were new, and they're sure as hell not any good now. All right, it's back on the wheel.